What's up, everybody? Oh man, I had to get on and do this news stream like right away. It's insane. So we're talking more World of Warcraft Shadowlands. Now we're talking beta news, but man, there's so much. So this past Wednesday, July 8th, we got the live stream that we were supposed to get from Blizzard, where they talked about Shadowlands a little bit. And my last news stream is all the coverage about what's going on in that video and my thoughts on everything that they said. Well, they announced that the beta was coming out this coming week. And it was like, okay, cool, sweet. We're going to have some more info. Well, then they went on and they did like so many interviews, like so many more interviews in the span of just a couple of days. We got a ton of information. On top of that, certain select people, not me, got access to an early preview version of the actual beta build that's coming out next week. So we got a ton of info about that. And then on top of that, Blizzard went on to put out even more preview articles on their website. So I started looking at all this and I was like, I have to do a news stream, because if I don't, then the next one I do is going to be like 4 hours long. And while I know I could do that, I don't want to do that. So we have so much to talk about. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind everybody to go ahead and check the links in the description below. I've got a link to the Discord if you guys want to hop in and join that, be a part of that. I also have a link to my Twitch channel, trying to increase some subs there. And then finally, I have a link to my 5K celebration video where you can find out details about what's coming up with the channel in the future, and also see about how you could possibly be the recipient of a gifted copy of World of Warcraft Shadowlands over the coming months. So that's it. That's all I got. Let's jump in. We have so much stuff to cover. And at this point, I normally have everything pulled up and I have it put in a nice, neat order and everything else, but you know, here I'm just going to roll with it. We're just going to go through. I have read most of the articles and stuff that we're going to be talking about, so I'm not going to be sitting here reading everything to you the whole time. We're going to go straight into the information. Some of these I'll be able to just read you the headline and give you the thoughts on it. Others we're going to dive in a little bit deeper. And then at the end of the stream, kind of the big cap for this one is going to be looking at all of the preview articles that Blizzard put up, which actually talk more specifically about each of the covenants and about their various like mini games and things that they have going on. And those I purposely have not read yet because I want to have like the genuine reaction to those. So yeah, we're going to go in and we're going to get started. So we are several pages back here. So this Shadowlands interview with Ian Hazakazis and Lappy Live Blog. This was one of the first things that popped up shortly after we got the developer update. So the developer update here was what we had on Wednesday. And so we're moving on. And this was the first one that we got. So we're going to scroll through and check out a couple of the highlights here. So this one here says, will additional systems like essences be added in Shadowlands? And the basic summary here is, no, the idea with Shadowlands is that they want to launch with all the systems that they intend to have throughout the expansion. And then as patches and stuff come out, they want to iterate on those systems and continue to improve them with like new unlocks, new soulbinds for your covenants, more things to do in Torghast, that kind of stuff. And essentially what they said was like the essence system was made to fix a problem with Azerite gear. And hopefully that's not going to be the case in Shadowlands. Will Torghast be a feature in future expansions? Basically, if the mechanics of Torghast are something that people like, then they could move forward with that as a potential like gameplay avenue, but it's not going to be Torghast, right? Because Torghast is in Shadowlands, it's part of the Maw, etc. How do you tune Torghast so that solo tanks and healers don't feel forced to respec? The idea is that the anima powers will help to compensate for that. Solo players shouldn't feel like they have to group up with other players, and they've learned a lot by doing horrific visions. And that's one of the kind of themes that I see going through a bunch of these interviews and articles, is that I think they just kind of used like the second half of BFA to test out a lot of ideas for what is going on in Shadowlands. And we're going to see that here. So with learning a lot from visions, they're able to tune Torghast better for solo players and for also, tanks and healers in particular. How are you planning on tuning Covenants and Covenant, tuning? The answer to what's the best Covenant should be, it depends. And the basic idea that you're going to see pop up a bunch here is that they're kind of making it harder to pinpoint precisely what is better than something else. And by layering systems on top of each other so much, like you have the Covenant ability, you have the, stuff that you can get from your Covenant, you've got the Soulbinds, you've got the legendaries, you've got anima powers if you're in Torghast, you have all this stuff. So I think in general, what they're trying to do is put so many layers on the cake that you can't figure out which one is tasting a little bit off. And that's kind of what I'm getting from the different interviews that we see here. And that's basically what they talk about here. And we'll see a little bit more details about Covenants and swapping and stuff in a little bit. They haven't decided on the seasonal affects yet. That's fine. They have mentioned that the weekly Mythic plus dungeon loot system is going to be a little bit different. You're supposed to get more options when you loot your weekly chest, but you just pick one thing. You just have multiple things to choose from. And then you are going to also have the option, if you don't like any of those choices, to pick like an important currency to take on. Edwin says, good to see you on WoW subjects. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I like the support for whatever. Definitely, back into the WoW groove here, but I still like doing my other stuff. So hopefully people will latch onto that at some point. We'll see. Okay, so we got more details about the Covenant mission system a little bit. So the whole mission table system is based on the Covenant that you have. It's turn-based, not just time-based. It sounds like it still isn't clear to me whether or not you can actually make the decisions or whether the battles just take turns and you're more planning the strategy behind it. It kind of sounds like if you've played an auto battler like Teamfight Tactics or Hearthstone Battlegrounds or something like that, it almost kind of sounds like they're doing something sort of like that, where your units are going to take turns fighting, but maybe you aren't necessarily doing the actual action on a turn base, but you're trying to set up the best situation so that when those turn-based fights happen, you have the best outcome. So a couple of things here. There's less RNG, more tactical ability management, and that's kind of what I was talking about there. Adventurers, the champions that you use, are going to have stats, including health and damage values, and they're going to level up with XP. And then on top of that, you're going to see here that the adventurers actually have different abilities. So Nadia has a ability where she becomes untargetable and heals herself for 11. And then the Venthyr Nightblade here has double stab. It stabs the closest enemy twice, dealing 72 physical damage with the first knife and 36 with the second. So you're getting like actual abilities to manage here. And they do have this layout. And so the idea is at the top of the layout, you're going to have random enemies in different like positions. They can be in different formations up here at the top. And then on the bottom, you're positioning your adventurers, your champions, in a way that you're going to be able to kind of have that best outcome for combat. This still looks like the mission table. Still looks like something, it hasn't, my opinion hasn't changed since the last news video. Yeah, hopefully it's better than what we have. Like at this point in BFA, I just don't care about the mission table at all. It was kind of interesting in Warlords of Draenor. There was a lot going on with it. And then even in Legion, I was like, okay, I kind of got into the phone app aspect of it to get, currency and stuff like that. But by BFA, I was just like, I don't even care. I don't care what the rewards are. This is not an interesting gameplay component to me. So having them shake it up and try to do something else, maybe it'll at least get it back to Legion levels for me, where it's something that I'm like, yeah, I can log on and, do this when I'm on break at work or something, via the mobile app, which they said was going to be updated for this. So, and yeah, like I was looking at this mobile app, and this is where I kind of got the idea that maybe you would have some control But at the same time, it might work in that auto battler fashion, because you could see here there's a little button that says skip to end. So I'm assuming you could just skip like all the combat and just have it like automatically fight for you. So that's what we've got. That's the information we have about the new mission table system. The Maw preview we're going to look at. We're not going to look at the Venthyr Covenant quest because I don't want to spoil that. We got a Venthyr Sanctum environment preview, and this is a little video that I haven't actually watched yet. So I wanted to take a look at this on the stream. This is a 5-minute video. We're not going to watch the whole 5 minutes by any means. We're just going to kind of get a feel for things here. Now, this is this is like the Sanctum empty, and I'm assuming that this is also before you've done some of the like Covenant Sanctum upgrades. So it's going to be pretty bare bones, but you can get an idea of like the scale of these, the architecture. That's pretty sick looking, I gotta say. If this was filled with some pretty cool stuff, I think I would like this quite a bit. And it's funny, the more and more we've seen of these covenants, the more I've gotten excited about every single one of them. I was already excited about Venthyr, like right from the get-go. I was like Vampire Hunter D, you know, Dracula, Castlevania, like all that stuff. Super cool theme. And we're seeing that here, so neat. And like I said, we're not watching the whole video there. Just want to get a little bit of preview. There's plenty of pictures in here, you know, if you do want to look at it a little bit more. I know one of the big things with the Venthyr is they have these like mirrors that serve as portals that they can go around Rivendreth, the zone that they're in, and kind of teleport around for that. The Joker, I wonder which tank class is going to shine in Shadowlands. Me too. I hope it's one of the ones I decide to main. Just praying for beta. I'm so sick of 8.3. I need something. I am praying for beta as well. I even reached out and tried to message a couple WoW devs and be like, come on, please. Let me get beta. Let me make content for people. Let me start getting some research done for the next round of new player guides. But we'll see what happens. Okay, so we got some more info on Covenant Sanctum systems here. So upgrades, resources, etc., etc. So you need 4 different resources to actually upgrade your Covenant. So you're going to need this Reservoir Anima, Sanctum Artisan, Sanctum Architect, and Sanctum Anima Weavers. Now, these sound kind of like the Legion mission table dudes that you had to go out and get in various ways. We don't know how you actually get these yet. The Reservoir Anima seems to be just regular anima that you put into your reservoir. So anima is like the core currency, and these seem to be more like units that you have to spend in order to basically reconstruct your sanctum. And we got a couple of things here. So we looked at this before, but this seems to be like the reservoir for the anima. And depending on what's in there, you can see here, that's how much anima you have. So there's like 119, 120,000 here. And we've got 3 of each of the different little units that we need to spend. And over here, we could see that the transportation network tier 1, in order for us to get mirror, we need to spend 2,000 anima, 5 of these guys, and 1 of these guys. So we obviously could not do this at the moment because we don't have enough people. And that kind of carries on. Now, looking at the Sanctum upgrades, there's a couple of concerns I have. One is the upgrades look kind of boring in general, at least in terms of flavor. I think mechanically they're going to be pretty solid. And also, I don't know if they're going to be tied to a visual upgrade within your Sanctum, but I hope they are. I hope like when you upgrade one of these, you get a new visual in your Covenant. I'm hoping that's the case, but I haven't seen any confirmation about that. Now we have the Venthyr one as an example here. So there are 4 different things that you can upgrade: your transportation network, your anima diversion, adventure upgrades, and the Ember Court. Now this last one will be different per Covenant. The Ember Court is the kind of special mini game additional activity that Venthyr gets to do. And you can see we've got a list here of what the different things do. So this is what I mean by, like, in terms of flavor, they're kind of boring. If you look at the transportation network, which is the one we looked up at up here, we've got mirror, mirror, looking glass, and mirror's edge. And if we look at what they actually do, mirror, mirror activates locations for the mirror networks across Rivendreth. Looking glass activates more locations. Mirror's edge activates more locations. So that's not very exciting. But, you know, it's obviously going to be nice to have more of those mirrors so that you can teleport around the zone a lot faster. Same thing here. The anima diversion. You've got flowing tendrils, streaming threads, and flowing power. And this says unlocks access to the Sanctum's first 2 anima diversion locations, which you can see those are the ones on the map. They look like the little towers here. So you can unlock 2 of these that you then still have to send anima to in order to activate them. And then if you continue on, it unlocks more and more until you finally have like all 6 of them. So they just seem to be not like, if you played if you played Warlords of Draenor, and you did the garrison system, every time you upgraded the tier of your garrison, there was some sort of like interesting new thing that you could do. Whereas here with the current Covenant system, the way it is, it just looks like, okay, I get more of the same thing that I got the first time. Now the adventure upgrades are a little bit different. This says grants access to adventures in the rewards. This is the mission table stuff. And then Deserved Feast says increases the rate at which adventurers naturally heal by 25%. So that is more of like, oh, okay, that's different. And then the next one says decreases the time an adventure takes to complete by 25%. So it's a little bit more interesting for, honestly, a system that I think is going to be a little bit more boring anyway. And then the Ember Court is where you actually get some kind of interesting stuff. So the whole thing with the Venthyr and their Ember Court, which I think we're going to get a better look at here in a little bit, is that they're putting on a party and you're kind of picking the stuff that's going on in the party. And you could see here, like, the Cooking Up a Storm says hire extra staff for your kitchen that will help serve refreshments. This unlocks additional refreshments options. And then the next one is additional entertainment options, and so on and so on. So honestly, like, these other ones look kind of boring, but hopefully the like depth of like the Ember Court and the other things we're going to see for the other covenants is kind of where we're going to make up for that. And I don't know. I feel like you're going to want these networks and things like this, you know, for actual gameplay and getting your gear and stuff like that. But these sound like the more fun ones. We also got some more information on Renown, but there's a better post about this later, so we'll look at that when we get to it. Skywalker, hey, just started playing WoW today. Wow. Just watched your Fury Warrior introduction. It really helped me out a lot. Thank you so much. You are welcome. I'm glad that you checked that out. Those are definitely designed to be like better introductory experiences for, you know, boosted characters than the crappy tutorial that's currently out there. Amax says if Torghast is good in 9.0, I think that alone will be more entertaining than 8.0. I agree. Just pray Torghast doesn't become the new Islands. Hey, I liked Islands. I just don't think they did enough with them to make them like worthwhile to run. But Islands were some of my favorite content in BFA, but that's just because I liked just kind of like chaining that stuff. You know, Torghast to me is like queuing Islands repeatedly, except you're going up floors, and then you have all this roguelike stuff and special powers, and yeah, it's like a way better version of Islands. So you guys don't forget to like the video if you're enjoying it, and let's carry on. All right, we got a bunch of these interviews here, and we're going to look at the highlights from them. So these, see how many interviews they did? This is insane. We'll pop open a couple of these here. All right, so we're just gonna, like I said, we're gonna run through the highlights here. So Torghast, they got rid of keys, so 100% confirmation on that. That's what it sounded like in the dev update last Wednesday, but confirmation there. There's a lot of different layouts of floors, dynamic spawns of mobs. There's a lot of replayability. That's great. I want to be in there a bunch. Mythic mounts and rewards, don't care. This is the weekly chest where they said you'll be able to pull one piece from a lot of different options. If none of the options are enticing, you can instead pick an important currency. So maybe like anima or something like that. Castle Nathria, they talked a little bit about the raid, which just sounds interesting. They mentioned Legion time walking. They basically didn't say that Legion time walking was happening, but they said that they are releasing time walking dungeons on a regular cadence. Legion is the next set that is due to become a time walking set of dungeons with the release of the next expansion. They said it probably won't be ready for launch, but it'll come out eventually. We're going to see more about legendary powers a little bit later on. Artifact appearances, same thing. So different shoulder transmogs. This is something that was kind of data mined, but we never got confirmation about it. And what they have said now is that it's something they want to keep pursuing, but there are some like issues and limitations to it. So don't expect independent shoulder transmog to happen for Shadowlands, but it's something they want to keep on looking at. Heirlooms we're going to get into in a minute. And class race combinations are not something that are being changed for Shadowlands, but it is something that they're always willing to explore. Next up, we got some information about the lore, balance and design, choosing content. I want to skip over a lot of this so that you don't get spoilers if you don't want them. I did read through it, and honestly, it's not super spoilery. So if you do want to read it, feel free to jump in there. There's nothing like super crazy about it. One of the big things here is that they talked about the covenants as a choice. And this is something that across most of the interviews that you're going to see here is that they want picking a covenant to feel more like choosing a class or choosing a faction. They want it to be a big, important decision where you're not like hot swapping a talent for a particular boss or, you know, changing out a weapon or a piece of gear for a particular fight. You know, if you think about it from the get-go, when you choose your character and you log in, you play, you get to max level and you're rating, like you've chosen to be a mage or you've chosen to be a death knight. And if you want to play something else, you can, but you're doing that like on another character. And so they want the covenants to feel obviously not that like, you know, solidified to your character, but they want it to be more like that and less of like, oh, I'm going to pick a different Azerite power, or I'm going to pick a different talent or swap out a piece of gear. So the covenant choice itself is supposed to be something with that much weight to it. And I do kind of like that. And there's some more details that we're going to get a little bit later on that I think kind of provide a little bit more insight to how the system is going to work. And overall, like my reaction to it has been very positive. There's definitely no new class in Shadowlands. I'm pretty sure we knew that, but they just gave us explicit confirmation it's not happening. Also, archaeology is apparently not getting any sort of updates in Shadowlands. The reason they gave is that archaeology is an exploration of the past of races and civilizations that are on Azeroth, and we're in the Shadowlands, and that's not a thing. No major changes are planned for PvP, aside from the fact that we have the return of Conquest PvP vendors, which we mentioned before. Pre-patch of the Shadowlands is supposed to be released about 4 to 6 weeks before the expansion. The game is not coming to console, which was a rumor that had been going around because they have increased the support for gamepads. And they said that they did that as an accessibility improvement, and I think that's pretty cool. And that's about it for that one. Max says, I like islands too, but it has become a chore just like everything else. Yeah, anytime you have to, you're going to see here coming up, like I think they're doing a lot of things that are going to keep you, hopefully, from grinding what you don't want to grind. And I forget which interview or whatever it's in, but they said that, you know, one of the big takeaways that they got from players was that in Battle for Azeroth, there was so much stuff to do. You had islands, you had war fronts, you had visions, you had, getting your corrupted gear, leveling up your cloak. You had your world quest, your mythic plus, your rage, your PvP, like all this stuff. And it's good to have that variety of content, but a lot of that content felt mandatory, and players didn't really like that. So one of the big themes with Shadowlands coming out of these interviews is that they want to provide that breadth of content, but they want to be careful about making sure that you don't feel obligated to play it. And in some cases that means like it's totally optional. In some cases that means they make sure to put limits on it so that it's not worth your time to play that particular mode of the game or whatever past a certain point, unless you just want to. So a good example of that is Torghast, where you go in and after a certain point you stop getting legendary materials in order to craft whatever legendary you want to. So if that's all you were going in there for, you're like, I'm going to go do Torghast because I need to craft my legendary. At a certain point, you stop getting legendary materials and you can't just infinite grind, and you're not incentivized to infinite grind Torghast in that way. But if you want to keep playing Torghast, then you can, and there are like cosmetic rewards and stuff like that that are tied to progression, in that way. So it doesn't feel mandatory to have to do that. So Covenant abilities and Soulbinds, you can use them everywhere. Once you hit max level and join a Covenant, you have a Soulbind and it's part of your character. So that means if you go back to old content or whatever, that's still going to be in play. They have the ability to do custom tuning and PvP with the Covenant abilities, which is good because I'm pretty sure they're going to have to. There was a lot of questions about if Covenants were going to become new factions and or if there was going to be Covenant-based PvP, and the general response was, no, the Covenants aren't really enemies of each other. They might come into conflict. Occasionally, they might want to fight, but not on the scale where like PvP is going to be a constant thing. So don't expect it, but it could happen if it makes sense. They've talked about there being room for additions like the Mage Tower at some point in the expansion, but I mean, honestly, they have so many systems already. I think they're going to have plenty to work with without introducing another system unless they need it as like a band-aid. PvP power was something that came up before in some of the news posts as a thing that was data mined, and they said, hey, that was an internal experiment. That's not something that's happening. They decided that PvP specific stats are not the right thing for the game at this time. You still don't know anything more specific about the launch date or if there's anything special going on for the actual Shadowlands launch other than constant server queues and crashing and disconnecting, which I'm sure will happen. But tertiary stats are going to be about the same as what they are now. So your haste, your crit, that kind of stuff. No big changes coming up there. During the pre-patch, that's when the level squish and other systems are going to go live. So they have a while to figure those out because I'm sure there are going to be some issues. And that's pretty much it. The pre-patch is supposed to tell the story of how the heroes of Azeroth are gathering in Icecrown and getting ready to go into the Shadowlands. All the 8.3 dailies are just too much at this point. I checked out from 8.3 and I'm just mount farming until Shadowlands. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. I'm actually planning on a WoW gameplay live stream this coming Monday evening. So if you're interested in that, tune in. But I will say I'm pretty much on the same page where, at this point, the only thing I'm kind of interested in doing maybe is doing some rep grinding to try to get some mounts and stuff like that. Maybe going back, doing some old legacy content. Trying to get my priest up to 120, that kind of stuff. So that's what I'll be doing. But I figure it'd be nice to jump in and actually play a little bit of WoW on the channel as like a change up from all the news videos. Even though I'm really just like I want to play Shadowlands. Okay, so they have talked about Covenant. Conduits, I think. Yeah, conduits. So conduits are the sort of little gems or stones that you can socket into your Soulbind talent tree in order to customize and amp up your abilities. And they have basically said that what they're going to try to do is make sure that those conduits are tied to the type of content that they help out in. So for example, if a conduit is particularly good for PvP, then chances are you will do PvP to get that conduit. If a conduit is great in dungeons, then it'll probably come from a dungeon. The idea here is they don't want you to end up in a situation like it, what happened with essences, where it's like, hey, the best PvE essence for my class and my spec is actually the PvP one. So even though I never PvP, I have to go grind out PvP in order to get this essence. They want to try to avoid that. But that being said, the sources of these conduits are not final by any means. So we're still going to have to wait and see what's going on with that. Also, if you are a hardcore PvP player, it's weird that you're here, but thanks for tuning in. They have basically said that if you are a PvP player, the main thing that you will need to do is set up your Soulbind and choose a Covenant, and then also run Torghast to get your legendaries. But at that point, you should be at about 95% power level of someone who's doing all the hardcore PvE stuff. So if PvP is your main concern, then those are the things you're going to have to do. Get to max level, choose a Covenant, set up your Soulbind, which we're going to see actually involves a little bit more PvE stuff, I think, than that small sentence implies there. And then run Torghast to get your legendaries. They're going to make sure they've got some gold sinks. They think the Brutosaur might have been a little bit over the top. I agree. Even like super popular streamers, I've seen them like trying to raise the money to get the Brutosaur. It's kind of funny. They're trying to make professions meaningful. We've seen some changes to professions. I haven't really dived into it too deep. I honestly, at this point, am thinking that I need to see it in game to like wrap my head around it, because I just haven't enjoyed professions for multiple expansions at this point. And so I basically have just tuned them out for the most part. So even seeing the changes out on a article or whatever, I'm like, I don't actually know if that's good or if that feels good or whatever, because I pretty much strictly went to like gathering professions and just sell mats all the time now, because I just felt like the actual crafting itself was just not very good. We did get some big news a while ago about the hunter stable size being increased to 200, and they said they don't really have a better idea for that. Speaking of island expeditions, they said they have no plans to allow players to solo in island expeditions, but Ian went on to clarify that no plans just really means they haven't thought about it. They're not like, that's not what they're focused on, but the intention is that they're really unlikely to make it so that max level characters have to queue into a group for content that they can solo. So it basically, what I got from that is like, we haven't thought about it at all yet, but yeah, probably you're going to be able to like solo queue for an island expedition if you want to grind that out and get some of those cosmetics that are still in there. There's no time pressure for you to finish horrific visions that he knows of. The achievements and rewards will like stay there, and you'll continue to be able to do those. We got some information about flying. So this is a big one that I know a lot of people are going to care about. There will be Pathfinder in Shadowlands. However, it will not be tied to reputation. It will be tied to the renown of your covenant. So you don't have to rep grind. You got a covenant grind, which you're probably doing anyway for fun. I know you're probably doing the rep grind for Pathfinder. I wasn't. I don't have it. I don't have Pathfinder for anything. So I obviously wasn't doing the rep grind. So yeah, you're still going to be gated. But by progressing through renown with your covenant, you're going to be able to unlock Pathfinder, at least the first one. And on that note, they also kind of mentioned that the Maw would likely, I think the Maw will be a no-fly zone for the whole expansion, and they're trying to figure out what to do about mounting. We might see a little bit about that later on. All right, we got a lot of, this is mostly some lore stuff. We got a couple other things in here too. They have talked about having different modes in Torghast, and at this point, Torghast is really just up in the air. So we know what we know. They did mention lore-wise that there are a lot more spaces, infinite spaces in the Shadowlands that souls can be sorted, and we might visit some of those other zones in future patches. And I'm assuming they won't have covenants tied to them or anything like that, because that would be ridiculous. That's pretty much it for that one. I thought this one was great. Blizzard is already looking at the health of realms in time for Shadowlands launch. Okay, look at it all you want to. We'll see if it actually makes a difference. Let's see. Oh yeah, and an engineering team has started to look at realm stability improvements for Shadowlands launch. Like, you know, whatever they have to say to be like, no, we're working on it. Like, yeah, it'll be better. I promise. So Stygia, I guess that's how you say this here. This is a currency that you're going to be gathering in the Maw. This is where they talked about mounting in the Maw and how, like, a lot of times mounting up and running past things kind of gets rid of the danger, and they want the Maw to feel dangerous. So they're trying to figure out, like, do we just not let players mount? Do we let them mount? But then it increases the Eye of the Jailer debuff. You know, what do we do here? And it's still up in the air. They'll still are figuring it out, but it does say you are likely to never be able to fly in the Maw. So that's where that comes from. There are different Maw areas that are not supposed to be explored by players too early because you're going to have debuffs and things like that going on. So it looks like you're going to have some gated progression within the Maw. They're going to be world quests within the Maw, but they're not going to show up on the map. They'll show up on your mini map. So you're supposed to kind of go in blind. But as you explore the Maw, you're going to learn to recognize, you know, different features or, you know, different, notable like landscapes and things like that, and kind of memorize where you need to go and where some of those things are located. A journey into the Maw will likely take somewhere around 25 to 30 minutes, maximum 40 minutes if you're super careful, and you probably won't need to enter every day, maybe 2 to 3 times a week. So this is one of the places where that grind that we were talking about earlier kind of comes into play, where it's like, okay, if I'm on one character and I probably need to hit the Maw like 2 to 3 times a week for maybe an hour at a time, that doesn't seem too bad for like in-game content, because I'm off doing my covenants, I'm doing my dungeons, I'm doing my, you know, regular world quests, I'm doing Torghast, I'm doing all this other stuff. So that doesn't feel too bad, I don't think. The current plan for resetting the Eye of the Jailer debuff in the Maw, which is, you know, when you're in the Maw, the more things you do, the more the Jailer has his eye on you, and the more he starts to like harass you to get you out of the Maw. You can kind of reset that by going back to your covenant and spending some anima in order to clear the debuff. They don't want you to do that, but they want the possibility to be there that, like, if you play and you get all your Maw stuff done, but then your friend logs on and you want to jump on and help, they want you to be able to go back and like clear out the debuff and help, you know? So it's not supposed to be super optimal for you to keep doing that repeatedly. And they don't want that to be the optimal way to play or to do stuff in the Maw, but they want that possibility there to just kind of take care of situations like that. The Renown, they want something that resembles more of a soft cap, and there's going to be some method that will require effort in order to help catch up. So catch-up mechanisms are going to be in right from the start, but they may require like additional weekly quest or some other objective in order to catch up. So it may not just be like, oh yeah, you know, I just get a ton of renown for no reason because I haven't played in 3 weeks. It'll be like, oh, I got to log on and do this quest or whatever, meet this objective in order to get that catch-up renown. There are plans for the future of the Maw after 9.0. So in the different patches, we're going to get some Maw stuff going on in those various, 9.1, 9.2, etc. Let's see, what else? Some Torghast stuff here, which is fine. The current plan for Conduits in the Soulbinds is that they're destroyed when you swap them out. This is not 100% set in stone, but the idea is that the Conduits get socketed in, and then if you want to replace one, it destroys the one that's in there, kind of like how gyms used to be. I don't remember if they're still like that. I think you can take them out now. But, you know, in that same sort of vein there. And then legendaries we're going to talk about a little bit later. This is a huge one. My most popular video on my channel right now is my Heirlooms guide, and they're taking away the bonus experience from Heirlooms in Shadowlands, and I would just hold your breath on this one because the community feedback so far has been super negative. So the idea here is that right now, if you wanted to level a character, it might take you 100 hours or something ridiculous to get from level 1 all the way up to max level, especially without using any heirlooms. And using heirlooms helps you to reduce that time pretty drastically. But in Shadowlands, there is a new player experience. There's a new system of leveling. There's a level squish. So now it should be closer to 10 to 20 hours to go from level 1 to max level. So in that sense, the heirlooms aren't necessarily needed, is what they say, because they've effectively baked in that XP gain from heirlooms and more by doing this level squish and by reducing the time to level. It makes sense as a reason. Whether it's a good one or a valid one is up for debate, I think. But the main thing here is heirlooms are not cheap. They cost a ton of gold. And some of the heirlooms, on top of that, you can't just go buy from a vendor. You have to put in a bunch of time to try to randomly get some of them. So I think the biggest thing that people are upset about right now is the fact that they have invested thousands of gold into getting these heirlooms that now are having their biggest defining feature taken away. Now, Blizzard has said that they are looking to replace the experience bonus with something that will hopefully be equally as beneficial or feel unique and interesting for your level up experience, but not necessarily here's a bunch of extra experience. I don't know. Like at this point, all my characters are max level, so this doesn't drastically affect me. But like I said, my #1 video on the channel right now is my Heirlooms guide video. So obviously, people want to level faster in the current game. People want these heirlooms. They want to know what's going on with them. And literally, I mean, I get it. The gear scales as you level. You don't have to worry about replacing it. Who cares? Like, people wear these for the XP gain because it takes forever to level. So I don't know how this is going to pan out. So as of right now, the word from Blizzard is the experience gain is gone. But out of everything I've seen in these interviews, these new previews, all this stuff, that is the one thing that I see like outrage over. So I would hold your breath and maybe let's see where this actually ends up by the time Shadowlands launches. Max says, I spent a ton of gold upgrading heirlooms of all armor types. Yeah, this sucks. I like leveling alts. I 100% agree. I mean, as you know, if you've seen my video, I have a ton of, heirlooms as well. I mean, I did have the, fortunate, foresight to, and stubbornness to just level a bunch of characters in cloth heirlooms because all I cared about was the experience bonus and just deal with the fact that they didn't have the right armor class or the right stats to be super effective. But at that point, it didn't matter. So I didn't spend as much as I could have, but I mean, I got the full sets for leather, and cloth because I played, leather classes and plate classes are my most played classes by far. But even my plate classes, like most of those I leveled in cloth heirloom gear just because I was like, I'm not spending the money on this stuff. So yeah, it kind of sucks. Let's see where it ends up. So something else here, you're going to be able to swap your gender in the barbershop for free. So currently, if you want to do a sex change in World of Warcraft for your character, it's like $15. to go on and pay it. It's the same thing as like a race swap or a faction swap. Actually, I think faction swap's a little bit more expensive, but because faction swap, you have to pick a different race and like totally remake your character. So it's like that stuff all baked into one. But now you're going to be able to do that for free at a barbershop. So we have lots of customization, lots of new things coming into World of Warcraft with Shadowlands to help diversify the game and just change up that color palette that's out there, and the kind of representation that you're able to have. This is cool. I like it. From like a personal perspective, it's not a big deal for me, but I know for a lot of people it is a big deal. But just from like a character creation and sort of role play perspective, yeah, I think this is really cool to be able to just go over and swap and be like, you know what? I'm tired of seeing this like male trolls silhouette when I'm playing. I'm going to switch it up and, for whatever, 5 levels or an expansion or something, I'm going to play a female troll instead. I think that's pretty cool. So, plus, Blizzard got rid of a paid service. Always okay with that. So, and they got rid of it by implementing it in the game and making it free. So that's definitely cool. We got a preview of the legendary crafting system in Shadowlands. It's pretty straightforward. So you need a couple of things. You need a special resource called Carcerus, and it costs you 100 Carcerus in order to craft a legendary. You also need a base item, which you're going to get from a profession. So like the Grim Veiled Hood here is a cloth hood that's created by tailors, but you'll have leatherworkers and blacksmiths as well that will be creating these baseline pieces. And then on top of that, you're going to bring 2 runes, such as the Rune of Haste or Rune of Mastery. And that's all the stuff you need to craft. So you need your currency, you need your base item, and 2 runes. And so what you do is you have this rune carving system here, and you're going to plop in your core piece of gear. So in this case, they're throwing in that Grim Veiled Hood. Then over here, you're going to choose the legendary power that you want from the ones that you've collected. So think of this as like an Azurite power or an essence or whatever. Anyone that you have unlocked, you're going to be able to click it. Boom, that's what they're doing there. They're adding Mark of Borrowed Power to this. And then you put those runes into these slots here. So what you end up with is a Grim Veiled Hood of the item level and everything that base crafting material was, with the legendary power that you chose, and then your runes determine the secondary stats that are available on that hood. So this is like a GIF, so you kind of have to like cycle through it here, but you can see that the Grim Veiled Hood just has 50 intellect, 77 stamina. It's getting Mark of Borrowed Power added, and then these secondary slots here, now he's got 53 haste and adding 53 mastery. So I think this is a really cool system. I like it a lot, actually. I think this is super cool. It gives professions a reason to like churn out these, baseline items that everybody's going to need for their legendaries. You can determine the secondary stats, which is so great because you don't have to try to roll for the best ones for your class. And on top of that, you just get to pick the legendary power that you want. Now, those legendary powers are going to come from different places. You may have to, like, if you want a particular one, you might have to get it by doing something in a raid or doing something in a mythic dungeon or however they decide to line that up. But like once you have it unlocked, it's unlocked. And there are a couple of extra cool things here. The main one is that they have said that legendary power unlocks are account wide. So once you have them, and you could use them on any of your characters. And that is so alt friendly. I love it. You guys know I play a ton of alts, and anything like that is super awesome. I like that quite a bit. I also do like that this is a good way. This is actually a great way to keep professions relevant. Now, obviously, I'm sure like every tailor is going to be churning these out, trying to get the money from those. But the other thing that they've said is that at least for the start of Shadowlands, you're only going to be able to equip one legendary item at a time. Also, legendary powers cannot be applied to weapons or to trinkets. So It's just your other pieces of gear that you can put those on, and some legendary powers cannot be applied, can only be applied to specific pieces of gear. So, or gear slots. So there may be a specific legendary power. Let's say it's related to movement or whatever, and that power can only go on boots. So, there's some limitations there, but overall, I think this is such a better system than just trying to grind and hope for a random drop, then hope that that drop was the one that you wanted, then hope that it had the secondary stats that you wanted. Like, this system seems way, way better, and I like it quite a bit. I think it's all going to come down to how you acquire the legendary powers. I think that's going to determine a lot whether or not this system is popular. But I think if they keep it to like the legendary powers that you get kind of are themed for whatever you're getting them in. So like, you know, a sweet power for Torghast, maybe you would get that from doing Torghast content. A sweet raiding ability you would get for doing raids. Then they have the potential to kind of avoid a lot of issues with that. But yeah, that's the legendary system. Like I said, it looks really good. I love that they're pulling the RNG out, and it's just like, hey, just go do your stuff. Grind it out, get what you want. They also did mention that baseline at launch, there are going to be 4 class-specific powers per class, as well as 4 spec-specific powers per spec. So on something like a Demon Hunter, there are going to be 12 different powers. There are going to be 4 for Vengeance, 4 for Havoc, and then 4 for both specs. And on top of that, there is going to be a general pool of these legendary powers that is going to be available to all classes. All right, you guys, I'm going to hydrate real quick. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like the stream if you're having a good time learning about all this crazy stuff that has come out in the past like 2 or 3 days. We're going to continue on here in just a second. More info. And thanks for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. All right, here we go. More and more and more and more and more. We are going to skip the lore spoilers. So if you see me opening those here, don't worry about it. I'm not into these lore spoilers. I'm actually really excited about Shadowlands because it's so different. So I personally am trying to avoid as much like, you know, deep story content as I can. Like the big notes of what's going on, that's totally fine. Okay, so there's a new store mount. Woo! This is the new 6-month subscription plan mount. And I'm kind of upset because I was going to get the 6-month subscription plan because obviously that's what I do here on the channel. I've never gotten a 6-month subscription plan before, but I was like, you know what? I'm playing Shadowlands. I'm going to be making content, save myself a little bit of money. And they came out with this and it was like, oh, sweet. Just in time. A new 6-month mount. Sweet. I can get a little bonus. But I actually don't really like this mount. I don't hate it. It's a mechanical dragon, but here's the thing with me. I don't like steampunk stuff. I don't really like robots stuff. Like that's not my thing. That's not my aesthetic. Like the Mechagon stuff was just not my cup of tea. I'm not into it. And so I see this dragon and I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's a dragon. It's a robot dragon. It's a metal dragon. Okay. But oh well. Oh well. All right, moving on from shop mounts. Final boss of Shadowlands. We know this. It's going to be the jailer. They basically, that's not really a spoiler. They're just kind of saying like, no, there's no weird stuff like what happened in Battle for Azeroth where all of a sudden you're going to end up fighting N'Zoth, even though it's supposed to be an expansion about a faction war and taking back, you know, saving Azeroth and stuff. And all of a sudden we get, oh God, it's like, nope, Shadowlands is about the Shadowlands. It's about what's going on with the jailer. And the jailer's the final boss. We got a lore interview here that I am going to skip over for the, yeah, I'm just going to skip over this. Feel free to read this. It's a good read if you're interested. And to be honest, it's not super spoilery about like Shadowlands itself. It's kind of like some Shadowlands adjacent information with a couple of like tidbits thrown in there. So check it out if you want to. Maw questline, we're not taking a look at. So we got new class animations on the character screen, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we looked at this in a previous news video, and there are some new ones in. I don't like these as much. Some of them I think look really corny, especially the ones where the character hands get like really in the face of the camera, because I just don't think that they look good. But whatever. You can see them all here. The rogue one's pretty sick. I think the shaman one's pretty lame. I don't know. They also like the animation. I kind of get it, but it's like they're trying to show every single spec in a single animation. Like if you look at the warlock, you kind of get like some curse stuff, summoning some demons. If you look at the mage, they're like, oh, there's ice and there's fire. And look, this arcane thing. It's just, it seems like too much. But whatever. I liked the old ones better, I think. We got some information about Shadowlands zones and just kind of the design behind everything here. There's not a whole lot going on. One thing that I thought was pretty cool that was mentioned in here was the fact that there is a new customization for Night Elves in the form of a scar called Teldrassil. And this is basically supposed to let you indicate that your character is a survivor of the attack on Teldrassil. And I thought that was pretty cool. Like this, like to me, I actually really like this. It's a lore relevant character customization thing. And I kind of wish they would do more stuff like this. I think this is like super cool because it's not just, oh, you know, I'm a green-haired night elf. It's like, oh, I'm a night elf, and here's a literal like scar on my face that's from this event in the game. And you know, it's still optional. You don't have to have it, but I thought that was super cool, and I really hope they do more stuff like this in the future. I don't have a night elf character. Probably not gonna make one or switch over to one, but if I did, that's pretty cool. So we got a little bit more information. This is kind of the same stuff we've already gone over about legendaries and loot drops. We got some Soulbind Progression information here. So we're going to take a deep dive look into Soulbinds in a different news video because we had so much to go over in this one. But we can get the general overview here. So you're going to start out at the top, which makes sense. And you are going to unlock new tiers through Renowned with your Covenant. So as you progress and you earn that Renown with your Covenant, that's actually going to unlock more Soulbinds. Now, this is where I was talking about before, that line about PvP, like, hey, yeah, you just got to, you know, get to max level, run your Torghast, choose your Covenant, unlock your Soulbinds. It's all good. That's all you got to do. It's like, no, to unlock your full Soulbind, you're going to have to get into that Covenant system, and you're going to have to be progressing your Renown and everything in order to unlock the full, you know, talent tree for your Soulbinds. So, yeah. Hopefully you want to play the Covenant stuff, but I mean, if you're a hardcore PvPer, maybe you don't want to spend the time on it, but you're going to have to. So you start by activating the Soulbind traits at the top, and then you're going to continue on as you get Renowned. And it's pretty straightforward after that. You're going to follow your path down, and then when you get to a fork, you can choose which direction you want to go to. And we do have a confirmation that like you can't fill in multiple things on the same tier. So this is a like single path progression. It's not a fill it all out style progression like we had with the Legion artifacts, where you kind of did path through them at first, but eventually you unlocked all the nodes. That's not the case here. Top to bottom, it's a single path that you choose. And along the way, you can socket in your conduits as you go. And like I said, we're going to take a deeper look into these as well. But the idea here is that these, you're supposed to be able to swap through them pretty quickly. So If you were, so let's say that, we got Nadja, she was like a duelist. Let's say she was really good at single target stuff and you were going into single target combat, then you could pop over, switch to Nadja and use her Soulbind. And then if we were to come over to like Theotar, the Mad Duke, and say he was really good at like AoE stuff, you could quick swap over to him for AoE content. So you're supposed to be able to change these pretty easily. And yeah, we'll go in and we'll actually do some builds and stuff at some point in the future. And it looks like resetting a Soulbind is supposed to be pretty cheap. The price right now is 1 reservoir anima. I'm pretty sure it'll be a little bit more than that. That's probably just a like beta thing so that people can swap and test really easily. Your socketed conduits will also remain so they don't get lost in the process. Okay, covenant swapping. So this is something that we have kind of wondered about. There's a lot of issues I think that could come up with covenants and power levels and choosing the right ability. And do I pick my covenant based on, the throughput that I'm going to get from it, based on the flavor, the transmogs, the story? Like, what do I do? So essentially what they have said about covenant swapping is that you should be able to easily switch to a different covenant that you haven't been a part of before, like super easily. So let's say that you decide, you get to max level and you're like, I'm going Venthyr, and you get like 3 quests in and you're like, I don't really like this. You should be able to just be like, you know what, you guys, I'm out of here. Peace. I'm going Kyrian. And just take off and go Kyrian, no problem. But if you get to Kyrian and you're like, you know what, Venthyr was actually better than this because I don't like this at all, then it should be a lot harder for you to go back and rejoin the Venthyr Covenant at that point, because you've essentially, lore-wise, roleplay-wise, you've said, I'm gone. I don't like you guys anymore. I'm leaving. You've kind of burned some bridges in the process of leaving the Covenant. You went to a different Covenant and, they kind of don't trust you anymore. Like, what if you're a spy, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea here is that you should be able to kind of like try the Covenants, and, if you get into one and you really don't like it, then you can move away and join a different one. But if you come back, they kind of mentioned it possibly being something that takes like a week or a week and a half or 2 weeks or something like that for you to actually complete the process to rejoin a covenant that you've left. So something that's doable, but something that takes quite a while. And the main reason for this is they don't want to incentivize people to go into a raid wing and be like, hey, you know what? Venthyr is the best covenant ability, the best Soulbind for me to complete this particular, raid wing. So I'm going to do that. And then when we're done, I'm just going to quickly swap over to the Night Fae, and I'm going to, queue up their covenant ability and their Soulbinds for, the second raid wing of the raid. They don't want to incentivize that. They want it to really feel like your covenant is a choice. It's a part of your class. It's like a subclass. And kind of the theme here is that or the idea is, if you have 2 warriors and one of those warriors is Venthyr and one of those warriors is Maldraxxus, for example, they're still going to be warriors at their core. They're going to bring all those skills and stuff to the table when it comes to dungeons and raids and stuff like that. But there are going to be situations where potentially one of those warriors can shine, maybe in an AoE situation, because they have the Maldraxxus covenant ability and Soulbinds, whereas the other warrior could shine in a single target situation because they have the Venthyr, covenant ability and Soulbinds. And so you kind of like, you have classes that are doing the same thing, filling the same roles. And it's not mandatory that they have one covenant over the other, but because they do possibly have different covenants, there are some situations where one can kind of step up to the plate and go, oh, I've got the exact right thing for that. And kind of help out and shine and have a moment in the spotlight at that point, which I think is cool. And I think that the super hardcore people are going to make the choice based on that, throughput decision. What's the best thing to do? And they'll change, They want it to be so that you can swap covenants kind of between raid tiers. So if you run the raid tiers and you beat everything and you look at the next raid and you're like, you know what, it's way better to be this other covenant for this particular raid, then you can do that, because you'll have, it'll take you a week or two or whatever to switch covenants, but you'll have that downtime between raid cycles in order to do that. This would also make it like so that if you do only play one character and you're not necessarily concerned with sticking to one covenant for the whole expansion, you could like do all the story content for a particular covenant and then take the 1 or 2 weeks or whatever it's going to be to swap covenants and then play through that covenant storyline and stuff as well. So you don't necessarily have to make 4 different alts in order to play through all the covenant stuff. It'll just, require a little bit of extra work on your part in between. So I think this is really cool. I think it's a good way to do things. I think they're kind of hitting that right balance of like, I don't want to feel like I'm pressured when I go into a dungeon or a raid to swap back and forth from covenants all the time in between fights or wings or whatever. But at the same time, if I, did just want to play one character, and I know plenty of people do that, and I want to feel like I can experience everything the expansion has to offer, then yeah, I don't know. I might start out with a covenant I'm the least interested in, play through that, swap out of it, and just kind of go down the line and make the last covenant that I joined the one that I was the most interested in, and just kind of, ride it out from there till the expansion on that covenant. What's up, Lost Soul? How's it going? Thanks for tuning in. As always, talking about all the crazy new WoW news that has come out. You guys don't forget to like the video if you're having a good time. All right, another interview here. We've kind of covered, I think, most of the stuff that's in here. There are no big looking for group updates that are coming at Shadowlands launch, but they are looking for a improved UI for Mythic Plus pug queuing, basically. There are no plans to change legacy loot at this time, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. Legacy loot, if you're not keyed into that, is basically just the loot system. How you get loot in legacy content. So if you go back and farm old raids and stuff like that, how that works. They made some changes to that, I believe, this past expansion. And they were, I don't know, I like the old system more, but that is what it is. Currently, you're able to stack conduits. And basically what that means is that if you are going down a conduit tree and you have 2 spots where you can put in a throughput conduit, something that improves your damage or healing or whatever, and you have a conduit that says deal 10% more fire damage with your fireball, you could plug that conduit into the first throughput slot, and then you could also plug another one into the second throughput slot, and you would have 20% increased damage to your fireball. Now, currently, you are able to do that, this conduit stacking. They're not sure if that's what they intend to do, but they think that it is. So that could change. And just the idea there is that if you conduit stack, that's powerful, that's strong. You can kind of specialize in something in particular, which could be cool. But at the same time, if they make it so that you have to have different conduits, you can't repeat conduits within the same Soulbind tree, then that gives you more variety and maybe makes you feel like you're not forced into that conduit stacking if it's the, optimal way to play your class. This one was huge. Problem classes. Because they're moving into beta, just because they're moving into beta, it doesn't mean that they're done with class design and they're only doing numbers. However, don't expect a fundamental overhaul. They could still change interactions between abilities, talents, and adding abilities. Now, there are still some problematic specs going into Shadowlands that don't look very great and don't seem to have gotten a lot of love. And the big standout amongst the community and just, with me from reading the various changes that are going on is Shadow Priest. Like, Shadow Priest still looks like, and from what I've seen of people playing the alpha and beta, plays like, it needs a lot of help, and this could be an indicator that it's not going to get it. Now, still holding out hope because it really does seem like probably one of the probably the main spec that needs a lot of love. So hopefully, even if they're just kind of doing minor tweaks here and there to the other specs, they can take the time to do maybe not a fundamental overhaul, but a pretty significant one for Shadow Priest moving into Shadowlands. Come on, Shadow's in the name. It's got to get the love that it needs. This is its expansion. Shadow Priest, Shadowlands. Come on. All right. Now we have like 2 pages here left on Wowhead, but a bunch of these are actually just links to the Blizzard previews we're going to be taking a look at. So we have a lot less than it looks like. So legendary power recipes unlock account wide. I mentioned that earlier. That's your confirmation there. So that's going to be friggin' sweet. Definitely appreciate that. Pathfinder based on Covenant renown instead of reputation. They're looking into class-wide artifact transmogs in Shadowlands. So as you know, like right now, if you are a feral druid, you have access to the Legion artifact daggers and their appearances. They're basically just saying that they're looking at the possibility of you being able to transmog daggers on any spec of druid and use that artifact transmog. Currently, you have to be feral in order to use the feral artifact transmogs, and they're looking at changing that. Now, a big thing here, this is the dangers of the Maw. So this has to deal with the Eye of the Jailer threat levels. This is something we've been hearing about in regards to the Maw for a long time. Basically, the idea is that the Maw is not friendly to you. When you go in there, the Jailer has his eye on you, and the longer you're in there, the more stuff that you do, the more you're going to be pressured to get out of there. And we're going to see this. We actually have some details about what this looks like and what some of those debuffs and stuff are. So when you enter the Maw, you're going to be subject to the Eye of the Jailer, which is a kind of like eye up here at the top of your UI and a bar that's going to fill up. Now, you can mouse over this to check the current level, and currently AFKing in the Maw will raise your threat level at a slow pace. It takes about 1 hour per threat level, and there are 5 threat levels, so about 5 hours of AFKing before you hit the maximum level of the Eye of the Jailer threat. But as you perform actions such as completing world quests, killing Maw rares, looting treasures, the big things that you're going to do in a zone, that's going to drastically increase your level of this debuff. And that's basically what it is. It's a debuff. So as you do more things, your threat level goes up, and as the threat level goes up, it becomes more and more difficult for you to stay in the Maw, and the final threat level is actually just crazy. But the neat thing here, and this is where I was saying earlier that, you know, it looks like they just took the second half of BFA and were like, let's just test stuff for Shadowlands. This looks like it's pulled straight from corruption effects from Battle for Azeroth, like the stuff that's happening here. So we're going to take a look at these. We've got 5 tiers. Tier 1 is Soul Beacon. It says Soul Seekers are now hostile to you. So Soul Seekers are a mob that roams around the Maw and is typically a neutral mob, but once you hit tier 1 of threat, they become hostile to you. The second tier is Soul Surge. This says towers will periodically attack your location, damaging you and chaining you in place. So now you've just got these random towers that are shooting you in the middle of whatever you're doing. 3 is Hunted. The Jailer will periodically send assassins after you. So this, I remember this from the corruption effect very, very vividly, where you would just suddenly get attacked by things out of nowhere. And that's exactly what this sounds like. Tier 4 is Kill Order. It says the Jailer will periodically send elite assassins after you. So these are the same as the other assassins, but now they're elite mobs in terms of stats and difficulty. And then Tier 5 is Immediate Extermination. It says you will take increasing damage and will be increasingly slowed until you leave or die. And the actual stuff here says currently damage taken is increased by 3% every 3 seconds. And your movement speed is slowed by 3% every 3 seconds. That is an intense debuff, because that's like on top of everything else. Pretty intense. Now, there is a penalty to dying in the maw. The Stygia, or I don't know. I read it as Stygia, but then somewhere it said it was pronounced Stygia. Whatever. Is the currency you're going to be earning in the maw, and when you die, you lose half of it. So it's a balance between like how far do you push, how far do you go, how many of these stacking debuffs do you take on before you eventually just get out because you don't want to die and lose half of the currency that you've been earning in the maw. I actually like this. I think this is cool. And the reason that I do like this is because I like the idea of this being something that you're not forced to do constantly. You know, it's something you get in, you kind of make the hard choices of what you want to do in the maw, and then you get out. And that's kind of the end of the story. It's not a thing where you have to go in and grind for like 6 hours trying to get something done every single day. And I like that. I would rather have like more systems that you can dip your toes into if you want to, but you're not necessarily required to, as opposed to a few systems that you just have to do no matter what. Because if you don't like one of those systems and you're forced to do it for hours and hours, that just makes the game feel awful. So I think this is pretty cool. I think it's an interesting way to do stuff. It's definitely like inspired by the corruption system, or the corruption system was a test for it for sure. But I think it's cool. It's interesting. And I do like that, unlike the corruption system, like you're not like your gear's not tied to this. Your player power is not tied to what's going on here. So yeah, a lot more details about what goes on in the mall. Then we got a bunch of these Blizzard previews, which we're going to take a look at here. We're on to the final page of news. More stuff here. More stuff I don't want to look at until I've actually looked at the Blizzard previews. We've got some more customization options. At this point, like there's so many, it's hard to keep up with. Blizzard has said that city guards and civilian NPCs will receive updated diverse appearances in Shadowlands. One of the things they did mention, though, is that this is like always with the intention of working on current expansion content and future content. This doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go back into like Stormwind and Ironforge and everything else and just change a bunch of stuff that's already there. If they have a reason to go back and mess with that stuff, then they probably will. But this is really just saying, like, in Shadowlands, like the towns and stuff that you go to, they're going to have a more diverse appearance set for the various people that are there. Renown. The main thing that we know here that's different from what we've already talked about is that Renown has a weekly cap. So Renown is another thing that you're not going to have to infinitely grind. So once again, they're kind of putting a cap on it, encouraging you to hit the cap, do that content, and then move on and do something else for the week. And that's it. That is all the like Wowhead news, the like roundups of all the various interviews and the information that we got. Like I said, it's a lot of stuff. And now we're going to get a lot of cool information about covenants and systems and look at some pretty pictures. And I'm super excited about this. I haven't actually read this stuff or looked at it myself yet. So yeah, we're going to get some live reactions. I'm pretty pumped about this. We've actually got previews for all of the covenants, and I don't know which one. If you guys want to vote, throw something out there. I don't know which one I want to do first. I kind of thought like maybe I'd go in the order of the one I'm like the least interested in or the most curious about. I don't know. I feel like a little kid in a candy shop right now. I'm pretty excited about this. But thanks for tuning in. Lost Soul says, wondering if we get a cloak to hide from the jailer. No, you can, remove the debuff by going back to your covenant. This isn't set in stone, but the general idea right now is you go back to your covenant and you can pay some resource to remove the debuff that you have if you want to keep questing in the maw. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that'll be a thing. Now that you mention it, it might be a thing. I hope it's not a thing, though. All right, so we got the 6-month mount again. Here's just another picture of it. Woo! All right, we got a preview of the Maw. And we kind of covered all this stuff. Here we go. When you defeat enemies in the Maw or complete quests, you will earn Stygia, whatever. I'm going to say Stygia until I hear it. Stygia. That you can use to purchase ciphers, powerful tools, and buffs to aid your survival within this terrible place, as well as within Torghast Tower of the Damned. So there you go. Maybe it's not a cloak. You earn this currency to get ciphers. It says one of the ciphers you can purchase from Venari ensures that you will always get to pick from at least 2 anima powers from any source that grants them in Torghast. For those who wish to take a bit of the Maw with you on your travels, you'll also be able to trade in your Stygia for cosmetics, including pets. Oh, and this is the broker. See, this is what I mean. Like, this is something like totally new for WoW. I mentioned this in my last stream. If you caught my ramble at the end, this is just something that like we just haven't seen anything like this in WoW before, and I'm super excited about that. It also says that if you die, you're going to lose some of your Stygia, but if you are daring enough to return to the place where you fell, you can reclaim it. So it's straight up like some Dark Souls mechanics. That's pretty interesting, actually. We've got the Jailer's Domain. Some of the entities that roam the Maw are powerful enemies not to be trifled with. So we have the Maw Sworn. These are the Jailer's minions who bring pain and punishment to the most wicked of souls. You have the Maw Sworn Avengers. Circling the skies above, these winged warriors use their spears to impale intruders. And then the Maw Sworn Shadowcaster. Powerful magic wielders, Maw Sworn Shadowcasters lob powerful bolts of dark energy to destroy those who oppose the Jailer's will. We have Death's Essence. This charred behemoth is looking cool. I wonder how big this is. I wonder if this is like Fel Reaver size, or if it's, you know, more like a normal mob. We got Blazing Stygia, Soul Eater, Soul Seeker. Wow, man, this stuff is pretty cool. Yep, and then we got some details about the buff there. Okay, so I kind of wanted to get that out the way. We got a little Maw preview here. All right, so we have a look at Covenant systems from Blizzard. So this is mainly just going to give us a couple of ideas, maybe a couple of pictures here. So we kind of went over some of this stuff. We got the general vibe for all the Covenants at this point. And then we have the Covenant campaign. So they mentioned this in the dev update video. There's going to be a campaign for each Covenant that is equivalent in scope to the war campaigns from Battle for Azeroth. So that's pretty exciting. Renowned here, we've got a couple of different things. You could unlock a new row of power for your Soulbind character, increase the item level of items you receive from World Quest, increase the maximum potential level of the features within your Sanctum, earn legendary recipes for the Rune Crafter in Torghast, and earn unique Covenant-themed cosmetic items such as mounts, pets, a title, back attachment transmog, and transmog armor. That is sweet. I love that this is tied to the Renown system, because I'm assuming like this Renown is stuff that you're doing with Quest, and maybe you can do a couple different pieces of content. It says, each week you will pick up 2 quests in your Sanctum. Each of these quests will award you a Renown level. Sweet. The first quest asks that you deposit a certain amount of anima into your reservoir in your Sanctum, okay, and you earn that by doing all kinds of different stuff. The second weekly quest sends you to the Maw to recover souls from the clutches of the Jailer. So there we go. It's a weekly quest to get into the Maw, and maybe you'll need to get into the Maw 2 or 3 times a week or whatever to finish that quest. Completing each chapter of your Covenant campaign will also provide an additional Renown level, so those will be quests that you want to focus on. Sweet. If you fall behind or are leveling an alternate character, you'll be able to earn additional Renown from in-game activities such as dungeons, raids, PvP, and callings until you've reached the current maximum. Now, I believe callings are tied to the, what are they called? The Soulbind, the like adventure characters. Maybe the Soulbind characters specifically. And then we have the Sanctums. And I think we have a little bit more details. Let's see. Shared features within the Covenants. We have Adventurers, the Transport Network, the Anima Conductor, and Soulbind. So we've seen all that before. We have Conduits as well. Covenant class abilities and signature abilities. Signature abilities are available to all players who join the Covenant regardless of race, class, or specialization. Class Covenant abilities provide additional combat-oriented gameplay options that are tailored to the theme of that Covenant. Cool. Now, our next thing here is a little bit of a Soulbind preview. So we kind of already talked about this. We get a couple of different pictures here. We got a Night Fae Covenant character. You can kind of read over these a little bit too if you want to. Oh, so we actually get a list of the various Soulbind characters that you're going to be able to connect to for each of the different factions, which is pretty sweet. So we have Kyrian Soulbinds, Pelagos, Clea, Forgelight. I'm definitely going to read over these a little bit later, but I think we're going to move on from these. I'll probably jump back and cover these actually when I do the like in-depth Soulbind, look, maybe in the next news video if we've got space for it. So yeah, this is interesting. We'll take a look at that then. What I really want to get into are these Covenant previews. We've got Kyrian, Necrolord, Night Fae, Vinther. We've seen a lot of Vinther, so I'm going to do this one first because I feel like it's the one we definitely know the most about. So we have the least to learn here. All right, the Vinther are aristocratic overseers of souls burdened with excessive pride and wickedness. They guide troubled souls upon the rigorous path to atonement, harvesting anima to keep their realm strong. Okay. Covenant campaign, we're not going to look at that. Our renowned rewards. All right, let's take a look. All right, we got our Vinther Covenant armor. Okay, what do we got here? We've got cloth, leather, mail, and plate. Okay. Now, what do I think here? I don't hate any of these. I don't know that I'm like, whoa, these are freaking awesome, but I don't hate any of them. And I'm probably going to go rogue, which means I'm going to end up in this leather set. And I think that's going to look pretty good on a rogue. I've got a Void Elf rogue. I think he's going to fit in quite well into this piece of armor. Then we have the pet. Oh, that is a cool pet. That's so cool. It's like a pet rock. And then we got the mount, which we looked at before, and I actually think does look pretty cool when it has like all the armor and stuff on. And then we have the back attachments. So there's 3 different ones here. There's like the cool, like I like this tombstone one quite a bit. Daggers are pretty cool. And that's like some kind of like lanterns. Pretty sick. I like these previews. I like that they're showing us so many of these pictures. Then we have the Covenant Sanctum, Sinfall. So each of the 4 covenants have features that they share among them, but they also have a feature that is uniquely their own. And this is what I'm really excited about in these previews is we get like more in-depth information about these, which we didn't really get in the developer update. For the Vinther Covenant, it's in the form of an elaborate party within the Ember Court. The Vinther are people who embrace the finer things. Their elegance and aristocratic air is most prominently on display in the Ember Court, where the grand galas are hosted. Receiving an invitation, let alone being seen, is paramount to a Vinther's reputation. Prince Renenthal is seeking to establish a new order with your help. You'll be tasked to invite guests, arrange for some refreshments, fend off party crashers, and in general play host or hostess with the mostest. You'll get to live the full experience of the Vinther and witness more of their larger than afterlife personalities while getting some loot for making the event a success. Okay, so about what we knew, but we kind of got a picture of where this does not look like a party. This does not look like a party at all. It looks like a funeral or an execution or something. Their travel system is the Blood Mirrors, which is pretty sick sounding. With the aid of a master mirror maker, several mirrors can be altered or reconstructed throughout Revendreth to provide an investing individual with shortcuts and quick access across the landscape. Venthyr Adventures, we've got that. We've got the Anima Conductors, which we've talked about before. And then our Soulbinds. Oh, cool. We get the little details here. We'll at least look at the pictures, and then we'll come back, like I said, in that other news thing to take a look at these. So we got Nadja. We got General Draven, who looks dope. I'm sorry. I'm really excited about these gargoyle people. I think they look pretty sick. Man, I don't know what this is, but this is... yeah, I like that one the most. And then Theotar, the Mad Duke, who does look a little bit crazy, actually. And then sharing in the wealth. So the signature ability is Door of Shadows, as we know. And then we also have the Covenant class abilities that we can look at here, which we've kind of gone over those before. Okay, so overall, like, all right, so I'm gonna try to rate these covenants, like, just based on which ones I think are the coolest. So right now, Venthyr is number 1 because it's the only one we've looked at. The next one I think we know quite a bit about is Kyrian. So let's jump over to Kyrian. Oh, sick. That looks so dope. Man, why did they go for this, like, zoomed in, like, and then here they're just like, boom. Look at all these statues. Look at these winged Valkyr and everything else. Okay. That looks sick. Is that a bell? It looks like a bell. Okay. Oh, man. First impressions. Let's keep on going. As you journey through the Shadowlands, you will find yourself swept up in the dark tides of the war between the Kyrian and Forsworn of Bastion, and your place in Kyrian history will not be forgotten. All right. What do we got? We've got the mount, which I love. I love this tiger mount or lion mount or whatever it is. I love it so much. And then the pet is like a cute little unicorn thing. Okay, that's fine. And then these back attachments, they're all right. They're all right. But I love that mount. All right, let's get into the armor here. We got the mail on the left. We got the plate in the center. Then cloth, and then leather. Really? That's leather? Okay. So the mail looks pretty sick. Cloth looks dope. So I'm going to be going Paladin with my Kyrian for sure. I don't know where, like, all my characters are going to end up, but I know, like, like, Rogue is going Venthyr. Paladin's going Kyrian for sure. And so I'll end up in the plate armor. I think that looks dope. I love the wispy blue stuff coming off of it. Man, super cool. And then, man, look at that Sanctum. Oh, that looks cool. It looks like it's going to be really annoying to run into, though. Like, that's a lot of steps. All right, so they have the Path of Ascension. All members of the Kyrian Covenant can access the Path of Ascension, helping their soulbinds test their mettle. You will play as either Pelagos, Clea, or Mechanicos, each of whom has a unique set of tools to combat the monstrosities they must face in the trials ahead. You'll help your soulbinds by gathering the materials necessary to summon or capture a boss, as well as tools to help them equalize the playing field. To combat a boss, you must first capture their memory in a soul mirror. Once a boss's memory has been captured, you can challenge them in the arena as many times as you wish. Once you've finished your prep, you'll play as the soulbind of your choosing and fight. Victorious soulbinds will be rewarded with blueprints to craft improved gear, signature ability upgrades, and cosmetics. For those who desire the ultimate glory, seek out and complete challenges to unlock special rewards, including mounts. That definitely sounds like it's up my alley. Like, combat, fighting bosses, very combat focused. Like it. Travel system is Kyrian Gateways. So you dissolve into pure anima to flip between points of interest instantly. Got Carrying Adventures, Anima Conductor, and here are our Soulbinds. So we have Pelagos. Clea. Looks pretty sick. And, oh, come on. We got the dope, like, armored owl dude. I love it. I love it. Okay, and then we've got the Kyrian Covenant ability, which is Summon Steward. You call your steward to bring you a vial of serenity that can be consumed to restore some of your health and remove all curse, disease, poison, and bleed effects. It says you get to choose your own special steward to call upon from an entire flock, including one of these three. Pico, a clarinet player who toots as much as he hoots. Farah, this hammer-wielding steward, isn't afraid of a fight. Just look at her splinter a training dummy. And Boomos, a baker at heart, Boomos has a confection to make. He always has a slice of cake or two ready for you. As you progress through the Covenant campaign, your steward will grow in power alongside of you by being able to use the travel portal or even craft special items in the Path of Ascension. If you decide that you want a new traveling companion, no need to ruffle your feathers, you'll be able to choose a new steward at Hero's Rest. Is it obvious which one I like the most out of those two? Like, man, I'm way more excited about Kyrian, actually. Yeah. I like the pet for Vinther better. But, man, I love that mount. That armor set looks sick. This hold sounds awesome. The Path of Ascension sounds cool. I love this, like, steward thing going on. Yeah, okay. So, currently, Kyrian, for me, number 1. Vinther, number 2. Let's go over to the Covenant that I have, like, hated on. Okay, that I originally hated on and have grown to like quite a bit more as I've seen more and more of it uncovered. And that's the Night Fae. Okay. Okay. All right, we're going to get into this one in just a second. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Don't forget to like the video if you're enjoying it. And we're going to take a look at the Night Fae here in just a second. And then we also have the last one, Necrolords, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to like a lot. All right, Night Fae. In the realm of Ardenweald, where spirits of nature are reborn, you will help shape the fate of the Night Fae by protecting their sacred groves against the vile Drust. So we're seeing the return of the Drust, which I liked quite a bit. I think they look really cool. Okay, so we have a mount, which I think this mount looks pretty sick for like another deer mount or whatever. That pet is by far the coolest pet out of all of these so far. Love it. Cute little fox. And you know what? I'm not crazy about these back attachments, but that butterfly one is cool. Like, look at this one. It's just butterflies on your back. That's actually really dope. All right, moving on to the armor. We have plate, cloth, leather, and mail. Well, I think Night Fae, I'm probably going Druid with Night Fae. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So I'll probably end up in that leather. I actually really like the cloth one. Like, I love this, like, helm with, like, the mask and the symbol and, like, the horn. That's actually really cool. That makes me want, man, there's, what, mage, priest, warlock. I've actually grown to like this tree one a lot more. This male armor set is one of the ones that I hate the most, mainly because I don't like the helmet at all, and the shoulders are kind of eh. But man, this just reminds me of like what my druid kind of used to look like in Burning Crusade. So I'm totally cool with going back to that. All right, so we've got the heart of the forest, and once again, we're not getting like a crazy picture here, unfortunately. Then we have the Queen's Conservatory, so this is their special feature. It says all members of the Night Fae Covenant can access the Queen's Conservatory, a celestial garden where they will harness the power of rebirth that flows through Ardenweald to help the souls of ancient deities return to life. During your adventures in the Shadowlands, you will come across the preserved souls of celestial spirits from across the cosmos. Within the Queen's Conservatory, you will find the power to aid you in restoring those souls to their former glory. To do so, you will work with the Queen's Warden to nurture the ancient souls back to strength using the magic of the wild seeds of Ardenweald. Inside the garden of the Queen's Conservatory, you will have access to 2 types of plots, the wild seed pods themselves and catalyst plots. You can plant different catalysts in the plots connected to each wild seed to infuse that seed with extra strength. Each type of catalyst will provide a different type of bonus to the regrowth process. I gotta pause. I'm currently playing Path of Exile Harvest, where you just like the big feature for the league is having a garden and connecting like seeds and feeding them life force, and like this is like, woo, this is giving me some major deja vu here. And man, okay. One catalyst might reduce the incubation time required to restore a soul, while others may influence the amount or quality of the reward cash you receive from each restored soul. For once restored to their full strength, the restored deity will show their gratitude with a reward cache, which can contain anything from resources to special cosmetics, such as pets and mounts. Managing the various wild seeds and plots allows you to try to maximize the efficiency of your garden. Learning the best ways to use and place your catalyst will be the key to unlocking the true potential of the Queen's Conservatory. Yeah, I'm about as interested in that as I am in the whole Venthyr, have a party thing. Maybe a little bit more interesting. Just because, the Venthyr party does look more like an execution. And, this is like a celestial garden. That sounds pretty cool. Travel system, they use Fae circles. This grants access to mushroom rings around Ardenweald, including places that can only be accessed by the Mushroom Network. Cool. All right, and then our Soulbinds, we have Nia, looking pretty cool. Dreamweaver. And then Corian. They all look fine. And then our signature Night Fae power is Soul Shape. You turn into a Vulpin, increasing movement speed. You may reactivate Soul Shape to teleport a short distance forward. Additional cosmetic forms can be earned and collected through a variety of gameplay. While out in the world, this effect has a short duration before it wears off, but lasts indefinitely while in a rest area. So the Nightweald Night Fae Covenant is going to be full of people in these like Soul Shape forms. I'm absolutely sure of that. It says, unleash your Soul Shape. As you grow in power and help your Night Fae friends, you'll unlock new Soul Shape forms that you can transform into at any time. I don't know if... So, I'm definitely still, like, Kyrian 100% right now. Night Fae, I think it's got some good stuff. It's about on par with Venthyr. I don't know which one I would choose over the other. It would probably come down to what class I was going to play, I think. I think they sound, just about as interesting as the Venthyr do. So, yeah, let's say they're tied for second place with Kyrian in the lead now. And we got one more left. I'm actually really excited about this one. It's the one we've heard the least about. It's the one I thought was the most, like, World of Warcraft already, because it just looks like Plaguelands, but then I saw some of the like enemy designs and stuff and was like, oh, wait a second. So let's do it. Let's do Necrolords. Okay, so for me, like Necrolords, when I see this, man, it's making me think Darksiders. Like it really is. And I really like the aesthetic. I think it's pretty cool. This obviously isn't a big sprawling outside picture like we got of the Kyrian Covenant over here, but I still like it. I mean, the color scheme, like, it kind of matches my logo color green, so you know I like it, right? Okay, among the Necrolords, strength is rewarded and weakness cast aside. The souls of the ambitious and contentious are forged into an immortal army charged with the defense of the Shadowlands. Okay, so we got some different armor types here. We got cloth on the left, then leather, then mail, then plate. Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm not crazy about the Necrolord armor, except the plate, which looks sick as hell. It looks so good. I love it. And I'm pretty sure my warrior is going to go Necrolord. My Death Knight might go Necrolord. Right now, it's like, man, am I going to play one of those as my main just because of this Covenant and this armor? I don't know. But yeah, the rest of it is like, okay. And I say it's okay because, like, I don't really like the mail. It's not the worst mail set that I've ever seen, but I'm not crazy about it. The leather one obviously is supposed to look like a stitched abomination, which, like, I get it, but I don't really like it. And then the cloth one really just, it looks like armor we've seen before. It's not awful, but it does look like something we've, seen before. It kind of looks like something from Wrath of the Lich King, or something along those lines. All right, so pet, we got a little creepy abomination. We got that crazy, like, death ram thing as the mount. Look at that tiny Volpera on top of this thing. Oh, I was going to make a Volpera, but man, that is tiny. All right, and then we got some back attachments. So we got, like, some creepy bone wings. We got a crystal, and we got whatever that is. Honestly, I'm not overly excited. Come on, Necrolords, you're letting me down. Letting me down. All right, so we got our Sanctum, the Seed of Primus. These guys look dope. Okay, and then we have the Abomination Factory. During the first weeks of the Necrolord Covenant campaign, you'll be introduced to Rathan and Imani, who you will work with to establish a small community known as the Butcher's Block. It's here that various constructs loyal to the Seed of Primus gather, and where you'll unlock a new crafting system, Abominable Stitching. Or Abominable Stitching. Okay. You'll need to gather a variety of resources to begin your journey into mastering fleshwork and bringing a variety of constructs to life. Each of these constructs will become residents of the Butcher Block, adding their own unique personalities, quests, and in some cases, companionship on your adventures. You have mixing pools. We hope you're not too squeamish, because there are literal buckets of slime in your future if you choose the Necrolord Covenant. You'll work with other players to convey buckets of colorful slime into a mixing pool, which will summon a repeatable boss event based on which colors you've coordinated. And then their form of transportation says you can utilize the Abomination Factory to create a friend to carry you wherever your adventures take you. Whether you want them to carry you on their shoulders, complete with their tiny top hat, or just want to tool around through the immaculately maintained fields of Bastion, you'll travel in ultimate style. If staying on the ground isn't your thing, you may want to set your sights on the necropolis high above. It makes a circuit around the zone and may inspire a little goblin ingenuity. So we're talking about goblin gliders there. Okay, so this really reminds me of what you did on Mechagon, and I'm not crazy about it. As I said before, I'm not thrilled with the state of World of Warcraft crafting. I also don't like having to go out and collect a bunch of ingredients in order to craft things. So I'm not saying this is going to be terrible. It might be fine, but it's definitely not me. It might be, but based on my past experience, doesn't seem like the kind of thing I'm going to get really into. Let's take a look at our soul binds. We have Plague Deviser Marileth, looking pretty cool with that Plague Doctor helmet. We got a mini, big crazy abomination. And Bonesmith Hymir, skeleton dude. And then our Covenant signature ability is Fleshcraft. Form a shield of flesh and bone that prevents damage equal to a portion of your maximum health. Standing near the corpse of a defeated enemy when the ability is cast will create a larger shield. Okay, man, I was excited. I wasn't excited about this. Then I was excited because I saw this kind of stuff. And now I am not excited again. So I think for me, Necrolords have fallen into a firm 4th place. I think Kyrian is definitely number 1 for me in terms of like the overall package. And then if I had to pick between Night Fae and Venthyr, ooh, I don't know. That's a tough one. That's definitely... I think I would probably say Venthyr is probably my number 2. Yeah. The main reason for that is I think I'm not quite as interested in gardening as I am throwing morbid, depressing parties. Also, I just think like General Draven is a gangsta and he's super cool. So yeah, let's go with that. Let's say top 1 for me, Kyrian. Number 2, Venthyr. Number 3, Night Fae. Number 4, Necrolord. Just based on these previews, that may totally change once I get in game. But like I said, and that's based on the total complete package. Like, what are you getting? Visuals, pet, mount, back pieces, armor. What's their special mechanic? What's their signature ability? All that stuff rolled into one. I think that's it's an easy win for Kyrian for me because like this looks awesome. I love the mount. I think all the armor is actually pretty solid. I like the idea of the Path of Ascension for sure, and I like this like select your little steward thing they have going on. Like that's just 100%. This seems like the Covenant that is like tailored to me, are pretty dang close. And the rest of them are like not terrible, but for the most part, they have things that, I am like kind of lukewarm about. Necrolord has some stuff that I think I might potentially just actively dislike. I don't know if I would like this kind of just at least make the interface prettier. Come on. This looks so dull and gross. And could they not use images or something? Am I asking for too much? Like, does this not bore you just looking at it? Like a boring generic crafting window? Come on, Blizz. If I get into beta and I get to test this out, that's going to be my feedback. Like, please do something more interesting with this. Like, why can't you just show like the Atticus body as a thing? Why can't we like drag and drop parts and like actually see what the body is going to look like and stuff instead of doing this boring crafting style? Like, come on, that alone would take this to a different level for me. Maybe one day you just play one tune. No, I don't think so. I think if I'm to the point where I'm only playing one character, I'm to the point where I just like am not playing WoW anymore. For me, like the class gameplay and getting to know everything and try different stuff, and I just don't have the attention span to play one character that hardcore like all the time. Even like when I first started playing, I had 2 main characters, like right from the start. Like, it was like, nope, I have 2 max level characters. That's just how this is. I have a warrior, I have a druid. And even before that, I think before I got any character to max level, I had already played like 6 or 7 different characters. So yeah, that's never been my style. So what do you think? Let me know. That's I know I usually throw this at the beginning of the video. I'm throwing it at the end this time. Let me know. That's what I want to know is rank the covenants. Like, what's your number 1 most interesting looking covenant? What's the one you think that you're going to pick? What's the one that, what class are you going to play with it? What's like I want to know your whole character loadout. Like, hey, I'm going to go, Necrolord, and I'm going to play a Tauren Death Knight. And I'm just going to have this big, bulky death cow, that's out there making abominations and stuff, and that's what I'm doing. Let me know what your class combos and stuff are. Whatever you're thinking about Covenants, what's your favorite? What are your combos? What are you thinking? I'm really interested to see what kind of combinations are out there, because I don't know. Like for me, I'm like, where does my monk even fit in this? Like, none of these look like monk things. Maybe I could stretch it and be like, yeah, he's a holy monk, or he's a death monk, or he's you get my point, right? So some of the classes I think like just don't really fit into one of these covenants from like a role play thematic perspective. So I'm interested to see what you guys come up with, and maybe that's something else. Like, what's the most awkward class and specialization that doesn't really fit here? Like some of them I think are pretty obvious, right? Like Death Knight goes in Necrolord. Doesn't have to. I'm just saying, like, from a put the round peg in the round hole sort of perspective, like what fits naturally. Like this is so paladin, like Kyrian just looks like paladin priest to me for the most part. So yeah, Night Elf retro druid in the Night Fae, resto druid. Gotcha. A lot of people get the alt bug. Yeah, that's absolutely true. All right, guys. Well, this has been quite a bit of a live stream. There was so much news. It's only been like 3 days since we had the developer update. And so hopefully, maybe not hopefully, I want more info. I want to keep doing these news videos. I want to get more information to share with you guys and talk about. But, I was hoping to maybe condense these down to like an hour long. But there is so much stuff to cover in here. So we'll see. We'll see where things ends up. The beta is coming out next week. Maybe I'll get in, which would be super awesome. I'll start playing that, live streaming that. If that's not the case, I'm going to continue the news coverage here. Like I said, on the next news thing, if we have time for it, we're going to do a more in-depth look at the Soulbind system, actually try to play with the calculator, maybe look at some of the conduits and stuff that you could plug in there for the various classes. And we'll try to pick something like that for each of these news streams to kind of cover and go over. With that in mind, the next WoW stream is actually going to be Monday evening. I don't have a set time for it yet. Keep an eye out for it on Discord if you want to head up for that. Otherwise, just stay tuned Monday evening. And I'm going to actually play some WoW. But like I said, I won't be doing anything like in-game BFA related. Most likely I will be, farming some legacy content, or maybe trying to grind some rep for like a mount or a pet or something like that, and just kind of hopping in and changing it up, playing some of the game, chatting with you guys, as opposed to just rambling on about all the crazy news that we're getting for Shadowlands. But I want to end this off by saying I want to play. Which is good. I'm glad that I'm, this excited about Shadowlands. I hope you are getting excited about it too. And hope you're having fun in whatever it is that you're doing. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. If you're new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to check the description for a bunch of different links. Got a link to Twitch channel, a link to my 5K sub video where you can find out about the future of the channel, as well as how you might be able to nab yourself a gifted copy of Shadowlands by just hanging out and being an active part of the community here, as well as a link to the Discord where you can join, be a part of the community. It's pretty chill right now, but I imagine it's going to get a lot more active once Shadowlands comes out. Like I said, hope you're having fun in whatever it is that you're doing. Good night, everybody. I hope I get beta too, Lost Soul. Thank you. I don't know. We'll see. As always, I'll see you on the next video.